The city was always busy, with people rushing past each other, cars honking and voices overlapping in a loud symphony. Amid all this chaos, a young girl moved slowly, her movements careful and deliberate because she could barely walk. Her leg was weak, and every step caused her pain. People saw her as just another beggar on the streets, someone to ignore, someone to pass by without a second glance. But they didn't know her story. They didn't know that beneath the rough clothes and tired eyes, there was a heart full of courage and kindness. From a very young age, she had learned to survive in a world that often seemed cruel. Her family had abandoned her, and the streets had become her home. Every day was a struggle to find food, a safe place to rest, and a little bit of kindness from strangers. She had seen many people turn their faces away, some even mocking her, calling her names and pointing at her weak leg. But she had learned to ignore the cruelty. It hurt, but she had something inside her that was stronger than the pain, a determination to keep going. Despite her hardships, she had a routine that kept her alive. Early in the morning, she would move slowly to the small market area where some shopkeepers were kind enough to give her scraps or spare change. She never begged loudly or demanded attention. She simply smiled gently and whispered a thank you whenever someone helped her. That little act of politeness, even in the face of constant rejection, kept her hope alive. She dreamed of a life that was better, a life where she could walk without pain and feel safe. Even if only for a moment. The city was also home to a billionaire, a man who had everything money could buy but had little connection to the real world. He lived in a high-rise mansion, surrounded by luxury and security. His life was one of meetings, phone calls, and business deals. He had everything, yet he rarely smiled, and laughter was a sound that had become almost foreign to him. His greatest treasures were his twins, who were pampered and protected from the harshness of the world. They were curious and lively children, but they lived in a bubble, shielded by staff and guards. They had never faced danger, never had to rely on themselves or their instincts. The girl had never met the billionaire or his children. Yet fate was about to bring them together in a way that none of them could have imagined. It began on a day like any other, with the girl moving slowly through the crowded streets. Balancing herself carefully to avoid falling, she noticed small acts of kindness from strangers, like a shopkeeper giving her some bread or a passerby dropping a coin. Each act was a reminder that the world still had people who cared, even if they were few and far between. She passed by a park where children played, laughing and running freely. She paused to watch them for a moment, imagining what it would be like to run without pain, to feel the wind on her face without worrying about every step. But she couldn't linger long. She had to keep moving. Hunger and exhaustion were constant companions, and she had learned to ignore her body's protests as much as she could. Meanwhile, the billionaire was preparing to take his twins to the city for a day out. It was a rare opportunity for them to see the bustling streets, the markets, and the people they only heard about in stories. He arranged for a small entourage, including security and staff, to ensure that nothing went wrong. He didn't understand why he felt a little uneasy about leaving the mansion, but he pushed the feeling aside. After all, he had planned everything carefully, and nothing could possibly go wrong. The twins were excited, their eyes wide with wonder as they stepped into the streets. Everything was new and fascinating to them, from the bright colors of the shops to the smells of street food. They ran ahead, laughing and pointing at things they wanted to see closer. Their laughter was pure, innocent, and it carried through the streets, momentarily lightening the mood of everyone around them. The girl noticed the children almost immediately. They reminded her of herself before her life had changed, before she had learned to survive on the streets. There was something about their energy, their innocence, that drew her attention. She didn't approach them, but she watched quietly, making sure they stayed safe from the busy street traffic. As the day went on, the children wandered further from the main path, curious about everything they saw. Their excitement made them oblivious to the world around them, including the dangers that lurked in a busy city. The girl noticed this, her instincts warning her that something could go wrong. She moved closer, her eyes scanning for any threats, her heart beating faster with concern. She may have been weak in body, but her mind and spirit were sharp, always alert. always ready to help those in need. A sudden moment of chaos erupted when a street vendor's cart tipped over, sending items rolling and startling the crowd. People screamed, shouted, and stepped back, trying to avoid the commotion. The twins were caught in the middle, unable to move quickly because of their small size and lack of experience. The girl saw them and didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, using every bit of strength she had to reach them, guiding them away from the danger. She supported one child under her arm while using her other hand to steady herself. Each step painful but determined. The crowd barely noticed her, focused on the chaos and their own safety. But she didn't care about attention or praise. She cared only about the children. She moved them to a safe spot, out of harm's way, and stayed with them until the danger passed. Her breathing was heavy, her body trembling from exertion, but she refused to sit down. She needed to make sure the children were truly safe by the time the situation calmed. The billionaire and his staff arrived, scanning the area frantically. They saw the girl, small and fragile-looking, yet standing strong beside the twins. He approached her quickly, his face a mixture of shock, concern, and curiosity. Who was this girl? How had she managed to keep his children safe? He could see the pain etched in her face, the exhaustion in her movements, and yet there was a quiet strength that commanded respect. He asked her name, where she lived, and how she managed to survive on the streets. She answered softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet every word carried honesty and courage. She told him about her struggles, her past, and how she had learned to navigate a world that often ignored her. He listened in silence, realizing for the first time how disconnected he had been from the reality outside his mansion walls. The twins clung to the girl, looking up at her with gratitude and admiration. They had never met anyone like her before. She was different from the people in their lives, different from the teachers, nannies, and staff who catered to their every need. She had acted without thinking of herself, without expecting anything in return, and that selflessness touched them deeply as the billionaire looked at the girl. He felt a strange mix of emotions, guilt for never noticing people like her before, admiration for her courage, and a deep, unfamiliar gratitude for her actions. He realized that wealth and luxury could never replace the value of a kind heart and brave spirit. This encounter would stay with him forever, changing the way he saw the world, his children, and himself. The girl, exhausted but relieved, simply smiled faintly, brushing off the concern. She didn't seek rewards or recognition. Her reward was knowing the children were safe, that she had made a difference, even if only for a moment. Little did she know, this moment would mark the beginning of a life-changing journey, one that would transform her world in ways she had never imagined. The city continued its rush. People moved past. But something had shifted quietly. A small act of bravery had set in motion, events that would touch hearts and change lives forever. The day had started like any other. With the streets alive, with people moving quickly, their faces focused on their own concerns, rarely noticing the small details around them. The girl, as always, moved carefully through the crowd, her leg weak but her mind alert. Every step required focus and effort, yet she didn't complain or pause for long. She had learned long ago that every moment of rest came with risk. A busy street, a rushing vehicle, a careless passerby could all bring danger in an instant. On this particular day, the billionaire's twins were exploring the city with their entourage. The children were full of energy, laughing and pointing at everything that caught their attention. They were curious about the small shops, the colorful stalls, the street performers, and even the stray animals wandering nearby. Their excitement was contagious, and even the staff who accompanied them smiled at their wonder. But amidst all the joy, the girl noticed something that others missed. The children were wandering closer to the main road. Stepping away from the protective circle of the security guards, her heart skipped a beat. She knew the streets were unpredictable, and she had seen accidents happen before. Cars and motorcycles zoomed by without warning, and the chaos of the city could overwhelm anyone. She adjusted her pace, keeping a careful distance, but making sure she was close enough to act if something went wrong. She didn't call out or draw attention to herself. She simply observed, waiting for the moment when she might need to intervene. The twins were oblivious to the danger. They ran after a small dog that darted across the street, laughing and calling to each other. Their carefree behavior made the girl's stomach tighten with worry. She moved faster, limping slightly but refusing to stop. Each step was painful, but she ignored it, focusing entirely on the children's safety. She reminded herself silently that she had done this before, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, and she would do it again, no matter the cost. Suddenly, a loud horn blared from a nearby car, startling the children. They froze for a moment, unsure which way to go. At that same instant, a vendor's cart tipped over, spilling produce and causing people to scatter. The twins were caught in the chaos, unsure how to move. Panic flashed across their faces, and the girl's instincts kicked in. She ran toward them, supporting herself as best she could, her weak leg protesting every step. She reached the first child and guided him behind a stall, using her body as a shield from the commotion. She called softly to the other, who hesitated in confusion, encouraged him to come closer. The crowd barely noticed her actions. Most people were focused on protecting themselves or retrieving their belongings. But she didn't care about recognition. She cared only about the children. She managed to guide both of them to a safer spot, out of the immediate danger of the road and the crowd. She knelt beside them, checking if they were hurt, and offered comforting words, her voice calm and soothing. The twins looked up at her with wide eyes, a mixture of relief and admiration. They had never seen anyone act with such courage and selflessness before. The billionaire, who had been momentarily distracted by the commotion, noticed the girl. He saw a small figure, weak and fragile, yet standing strong in the middle of chaos, protecting his children. His heart raced as he rushed toward them. He had never felt this kind of fear for his children before, nor had he seen such bravery from someone so seemingly vulnerable. When he reached them, he took in the scene: the spilled cart, the scattered crowd, and the girl, exhausted but resolute. Holding the twins close, he asked her name, trying to hide the emotion in his voice. The girl answered quietly, her voice soft but firm. She explained that she had seen the children were in danger and had acted instinctively to keep them safe. She didn't speak of heroism or recognition. She spoke only of concern and responsibility. The billionaire listened, stunned by her words and the composure with which she spoke. He realized that this girl, who struggled to walk and lived on the streets, had saved his most precious treasures without hesitation or thought for herself. The twins clung to her, holding her hands and expressing their gratitude in small, innocent ways. Their smiles, their laughter, and the way they looked at her filled the billionaire with an emotion he hadn't felt in years. He saw the purity in their interactions, the genuine affection that transcended social class and wealth. He realized that wealth and luxury could never teach children the values that this girl embodied through her actions: courage, compassion, and selflessness. As the chaos settled, the authorities and medical help arrived. People in the crowd began to murmur about what had happened, some recognizing the girl's bravery, others simply curious about the commotion. The billionaire's staff quickly assessed the situation and ensured the twins were unharmed. The girl, however, had pushed herself to the limit. Her breathing was heavy, her body trembling from exertion and pain. She had ignored her own safety entirely to protect the children. And now the consequences were catching up with her. The billionaire stepped closer, offering assistance, but the girl waved him off politely. She didn't want charity or pity. She had acted out of instinct and a sense of duty, not expecting anything in return. Her humility and selflessness struck him deeply. He had seen many people in his life, many who claimed to help others, but none with the genuine courage and heart of this young girl. He felt a wave of respect and admiration, mixed with a pang of guilt for never noticing people like her before. The twins, now safe and calm, looked up at the billionaire with wide eyes, eager to explain how the girl had saved them. They spoke excitedly, pointing to the way she had shielded them and guided them to safety. Their words were simple, but the emotion behind them was profound. The billionaire listened quietly, absorbing every detail. He realized that this girl had taught his children a lesson that no tutor, nanny, or school could provide: the true meaning of bravery, kindness, and empathy. The girl, exhausted but composed, finally allowed herself to rest against a wall. She had given everything she had in that moment, and her body demanded it. The billionaire knelt beside her, asking again if she was hurt or needed medical attention. She shook her head gently, smiling faintly, assuring him that she would be fine. Her resilience amazed him. He had never encountered anyone with such strength of character and spirit. He offered her some food and water, and though she hesitated, she accepted quietly. As she ate, the billionaire observed her closely. Her clothes were tattered, her shoes worn thin, and her hands bore the marks of a hard life. Yet in her eyes, there was a light that no hardship had been able to extinguish, a quiet determination, sense of hope, and a deep well of courage. He realized that she had lived a life far harsher than he could imagine, yet she remained kind, selfless, and brave. The twins stayed close to her, holding her hands and chatting softly. They had formed a bond in those few intense moments, a connection that would remain with them forever. They had seen the power of courage and selflessness in action, and it had left an impression deeper than any lesson from books or teachers. The billionaire felt a mix of emotions: pride for his children's admiration, gratitude for the girl's actions, and a newfound understanding of what truly mattered in life. As the day continued, he made a quiet decision. He would not treat her as a charity case or someone to be pitied. He would honor her bravery and kindness in ways that respected her dignity and autonomy. He wanted her to know that her actions had changed lives, not just those of his children, but his own perspective on the world. He wanted her to see that she had value, that her courage and heart were recognized and cherished. The girl, still resting, looked at him and the twins, a faint smile on her face. She didn't fully understand the impact of her actions yet, but she felt a warmth she had not experienced in a long time, a sense of connection, gratitude, and perhaps the beginning of hope. The city around them continued to move at its usual pace, oblivious to the quiet drama that had just unfolded. But for those four individuals, the girl and the billionaire's twins, along with the man who had never truly understood the world beyond his wealth, something profound had changed. It was a day of realization, of bravery, and of hearts opening to the possibilities of compassion, kindness, and unexpected connections. The city had settled back into its usual rhythm. But for the billionaire, the events of the day kept replaying in his mind. He could not forget the girl who had saved his twins. Her courage, her determination, and her humble demeanor haunted him, making him question his own life and values. He had always thought of himself as a man of understanding and compassion. But this girl, barely able to walk and living on the streets, had shown him a depth of selflessness that he had never encountered in his world of luxury. He wanted to know more about her, not out of curiosity or pity, but because he felt a connection he could not explain. How could someone who had so little give so much? How could someone survive such hardships yet remain so kind? He asked his staff to locate her, to find out where she spent her days, but they were puzzled. She had no fixed home, no known family, and lived mostly in the margins of the city. Moving quietly among the streets and alleys meanwhile, the girl had returned to her usual routine, limping slowly through the streets, her mind preoccupied with the events of the day. She did not think of herself as a hero. To her, she had only done what anyone would do to protect innocent children. Yet deep inside, she felt a strange warmth. The smiles of the twins, their innocent gratitude, and even the look of admiration from the man who seemed so distant from the world, had stirred something long dormant in her heart: hope. She returned to a small corner where she usually rested, a place with little shelter but a sense of familiarity. She sat down, examining her bruises and the soreness in her leg. Every movement reminded her of the struggle she had faced, but she did not complain. She had long learned that life was not about complaining, but about surviving. Every scar, every ache, was proof that she had endured, that she had survived another day in a world that often ignored her existence. The billionaire, however, was not willing to wait. He personally went to find her, walking through the streets and observing the life that he had long ignored. He saw the poverty, the struggles, and the resilience of people who had nothing but continued to move forward. He finally spotted her sitting quietly, her eyes distant but attentive to the movements around her. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. And when he finally spoke, she looked up, startled but composed. He asked her name again, his voice softer this time, filled with genuine concern. She answered with a calm voice, giving only the necessary details. He asked more, gently, learning about her life, how she had survived on the streets, how she found small ways to eat and rest, how she faced daily hardships that most people in the city would never imagine. He listened quietly, absorbing every word. With each sentence, he felt a growing respect and a deep emotional connection. This girl, who had so little, had more strength and courage than most people he knew. He offered her a place to rest, food and medical attention, but she hesitated. She was used to depending on herself, and she feared that accepting help might come with strings attached. He reassured her, promising nothing but safety and care. Slowly she agreed, allowing him to guide her to a nearby shelter where she could rest and recover. Her trust was tentative, fragile, but it was a beginning at the shelter. She was able to rest, eat, and tend to her injuries. The billionaire watched her carefully, not as a wealthy man to a beggar, but as a person to another person, recognizing her humanity and courage. He began to see how much he had missed in his own life, how disconnected he had been from the real struggles of the world, and how little he had taught his children about true bravery and kindness. The twins, meanwhile, visited her regularly. They wanted to see the girl who had saved them, to be close to the one who had shown them real courage. They brought small gifts, simple things that they could share, and sat with her, asking questions about her life. She answered honestly, carefully choosing words that would explain her reality without burdening their innocent hearts. Through these interactions, the twins learned lessons that money could never teach: empathy, gratitude, and understanding. The billionaire observed these moments closely. He saw how the twins' admiration and respect for the girl grew naturally, and he realized that she was teaching them more than he ever could with wealth or rules. He felt a shift within himself. The encounter with her had opened his eyes to values he had long overlooked: compassion, humility, and the quiet strength that comes from surviving life's hardest battles with dignity. He knew he had to do more, not as an act of charity, but as a recognition of her courage and potential. He began making arrangements for her medical care, ensuring she had proper treatment for her leg and her injuries. He also started thinking about her future, her education, and the possibilities that she had been denied because of circumstances beyond her control. He wanted to offer her opportunities, but he wanted to do so without diminishing her independence or pride. The girl, initially hesitant, gradually began to trust him. She saw that he respected her choices and did not try to control her life. This trust was hard-earned, built slowly through genuine concern and consistent actions. She began to understand that this man, despite his wealth and influence, was not seeking to pity her, but to support her in a way that honored her dignity. As days passed, she began to talk more openly about her dreams and hopes. Small things like learning to read better, attending school, or simply walking without pain became topics of discussion. The billionaire listened attentively, offering guidance and resources where needed, but never imposing his will. He realized that true support was not about giving orders or controlling outcomes, but about enabling someone to fulfill their potential on their own terms. The twins continued to spend time with her, learning more about the struggles people face and how courage can manifest in different forms. They began to understand that bravery was not always about strength or power, but about compassion, quick thinking, and a willingness to act when it mattered most. The girl's life, so different from theirs, became a bridge to understanding values they had never truly experienced. The city outside continued in its normal rhythm, with people rushing past each other, mostly unaware of the extraordinary events unfolding in a small corner of the urban landscape. Yet for the girl and the billionaire's family, life had changed. Lessons were being learned, bonds were being formed, and a new sense of hope and purpose was emerging. The girl, who had always relied on herself, began to see that she was not alone. There were people who recognized her strength, wanted to help her succeed. The billionaire reflected on the day he had first met her, and the realization struck him deeply. Wealth and power meant little without heart and empathy. This girl, struggling and frail, had shown more humanity in one day than he had witnessed in years of business and luxury. She had saved his children, yes, but she had also opened his eyes and softened his heart, reminding him of what truly mattered in life. Through this experience, the girl's courage had created ripples that reached far beyond her immediate actions. She had influenced the billionaire, his twins, and even the way his staff perceived the world. People who witnessed her bravery began to see the value of compassion and courage in everyday life. She had become a symbol, not because she sought attention, but because her actions embodied the essence of true humanity. By the end of the week, the girl was recovering well, her injuries healing, and her spirit stronger than ever. She had gained not only care and support, but also a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her life could change in meaningful ways without compromising her identity or pride. The billionaire continued to support her quietly, respecting her autonomy, and ensuring that the twins learned alongside her the lessons of courage, humility, and empathy in this chapter of her life. She experienced something new: recognition, trust, and the knowledge that her actions had consequences far beyond what she could see. She had acted out of instinct and compassion, yet the effects of her bravery had transformed multiple lives. The billionaire, once detached from the struggles of ordinary life, now found himself deeply connected to a world he had never fully understood. The twins, inspired by her courage, began to learn values that would shape their future. The girl, who had once moved quietly through the streets unnoticed and overlooked, had become an integral part of a family's life, not as a servant, not as a charity case, but as a person whose heart and courage demanded respect. Her story was far from over, but the impact of her actions had already begun to ripple outward, setting in motion events that would forever change her life and the lives of those she had touched. The day after the incident, the billionaire could not stop thinking about the girl who had saved his twins. Her bravery, her quiet strength, and her ability to care for others despite her own suffering weighed heavily on his mind. He realized that he had never truly seen the struggles of ordinary people, those who lived each day without comfort, without security, and often without hope. This girl, frail and injured, had faced life's challenges head-on and had acted with courage and selflessness that even he found astonishing. Determined to know more about her, he asked his staff to help locate where she stayed during the day. They were puzzled, as the girl had no fixed home, moving through streets and corners, unnoticed by most. Finally, after careful searching and asking around, they found her resting in a small, sheltered corner of the city, her body still aching from the previous day's ordeal. The billionaire approached her carefully, wanting to show respect and care without frightening her. When he spoke to her, she looked up, wary but calm, her eyes reflecting resilience and a quiet dignity that touched him deeply. He asked her name and gently inquired about her well-being. She answered softly, explaining that she had survived on the streets for many years and had learned to rely on herself. She spoke with honesty and humility, never boasting about her actions, never asking for recognition. Her voice, steady despite the weariness in her body, conveyed a sense of self-respect that made the billionaire feel both admiration and guilt. How many people in his world had he ignored? How many lives had passed by without him noticing their courage and struggles? The billionaire offered her food, water, and medical help, but she hesitated. She had learned to trust few people and feared that accepting help might come with hidden conditions. Sensing her hesitation, he promised nothing but care and safety, assuring her that no one would take advantage of her. Slowly, she agreed, allowing him to take her to a nearby shelter where she could rest and recover. The act of trust, small but significant, marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life. At the shelter, she was given food, water, and a place to rest. The billionaire stayed nearby, observing quietly, letting her regain strength without feeling pressured. He watched her as she carefully ate, tending to her bruises and soreness, her movements slow but determined. He was struck by the quiet courage she displayed, the kind of bravery that could not be taught or bought. It was raw, human, and deeply moving. During this time, the billionaire began to reflect on his own life. He had always lived surrounded by luxury, comfort, and security. Yet he realized that these things had never taught him what it meant to truly care for another person. He had protected his children from danger, but had he taught them about empathy, courage, or selflessness? He saw now that this girl, living without privileges, was teaching lessons that money could never buy. The twins, curious and eager to understand, visited the shelter to see her. They were excited, bringing small gifts like flowers, snacks, and drawings. The girl welcomed them gently, her smile kind but modest. She spoke to them about her life, answering their questions honestly but carefully, making sure they understood the challenges without feeling overwhelmed. Through these interactions, the twins began to see a world outside their own, to understand the value of courage and compassion in a way that no luxury or lesson could provide. The billionaire watched these moments closely. He saw how naturally the girl commanded respect, how the children gravitated toward her, and how her presence brought a sense of calm and inspiration. It was clear that she was influencing them in ways that would stay with them forever. He felt a sense of responsibility, realizing that he could provide support and guidance to help her live a better life. But he needed to do so without taking away her independence or sense of self. Over the next few days, the billionaire arranged for her medical care. Her leg and bruises were treated carefully, ensuring that she would regain strength and mobility. She remained humble throughout, accepting the help without feeling that she owed anything in return. This humility impressed him even more. She had risked herself to save his children, yet she remained modest, never seeking reward or recognition. As she recovered, she began to speak more openly about her dreams and aspirations. She had always wanted a chance to study, to learn skills that could help her create a better life. But opportunities had never been available. The billionaire listened attentively, offering ways to help her pursue education and training while respecting her choices. He realized that true support was not about control or charity, but about enabling someone to reach their potential on their own terms. The twins continued to spend time with her, learning more about courage, resilience, and empathy. They listened intently as she described how she had survived challenges, how she had learned to face danger without fear, and how kindness and courage often mattered more than strength or wealth. Their admiration grew each day, and they began to emulate her behavior, showing small acts of kindness and thoughtfulness toward others. The billionaire noticed these changes in his children and felt a mixture of pride and humility. Pride that his children were learning such valuable lessons, and humility that these lessons were coming from a girl who had so little yet possessed so much wisdom and heart. He began to see the limitations of his own wealth and the true meaning of generosity and courage. Meanwhile, the girl began to feel a sense of belonging she had never experienced. For the first time, she felt that she was seen, respected, and valued. The billionaire's genuine care, the twins' admiration, and the small acts of kindness from people around her began to rebuild her confidence and hope. She realized that her life could change, not because she begged for help, but because her actions had earned respect and recognition. The billionaire also began to reflect on his own life and decisions. He realized that he had focused too much on business, wealth, and control, neglecting the human connections that truly mattered. This girl, fragile yet strong, had reminded him of the importance of heart, empathy, and courage. He saw that real wealth was not in money, but in the ability to touch lives, inspire others, and make a difference in the world. As the week progressed, the girl regained more strength, her injuries healing and her spirit lifting. She was no longer just a vulnerable child on the streets. She was a symbol of courage, resilience, and hope. The billionaire continued to support her quietly, ensuring that she had the tools and resources to build a better future while respecting her independence and pride. The twins continued their visits, sharing stories, laughter, and learning valuable life lessons. The girl in turn felt joy in being able to guide them, to teach them about bravery, kindness, and humility. Through these interactions, all of them were growing. She, finding hope and purpose, the twins, learning the value of courage and empathy, and the billionaire, discovering the true meaning of wealth and compassion. The city moved on, oblivious to the quiet transformation taking place in a small corner of its streets. But for the girl, the billionaire, and his children, life had changed profoundly. A single act of courage had created ripples that affected multiple lives, teaching lessons that money and power could never impart. The girl, once ignored and overlooked, had become a guiding presence, a teacher, and an inspiration. Through her bravery, she had reshaped the lives of a family, showing that true heroism is often quiet, selfless, and rooted in the courage to act for others, even when the world overlooks you. Her story was far from over, but the foundations of change had been laid. Hope, respect, and compassion were now threads woven into the lives she had touched, and they would continue to grow, shaping the future in ways that no one could yet imagine. The girl had been recovering at the shelter for a few days now, and with each passing moment, she began to feel stronger. Her leg, which had been sore and unsteady, was improving thanks to medical attention, and her spirit, which had always been resilient, now had a glimmer of hope. She still moved carefully, but she began to dream, to think about the life she could have beyond the streets. For the first time in many years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she could be safe, cared for, and even happy. The billionaire had been visiting her frequently, not to assert control or make demands, but to offer support and guidance. He treated her with respect, listening to her thoughts and ideas, and asking her about her needs. He wanted to ensure she had what she required to recover fully, and to begin planning for a life that could offer more opportunities. He had learned from her bravery that true wealth was not in money or possessions, but in courage, kindness, and the ability to touch lives in meaningful ways. The twins continued their visits, bringing laughter, curiosity, and questions about her life. She answered them patiently, explaining how she had managed to survive on the streets, how she faced danger, and how small acts of kindness could make a difference. The children were fascinated, absorbing lessons about courage, empathy, resilience, in a way that no classroom or book could ever teach them. They began to appreciate not only her bravery, but also her wisdom and perspective on life. The billionaire realized that these interactions were affecting his children profoundly. They were learning about life beyond wealth, about courage that did not come from power, but from heart, and about empathy for those who lived with challenges and hardships. He saw the change in their demeanor, the thoughtfulness in their questions, and the care in their gestures. It was clear that this girl had become an unexpected teacher in their lives. One morning, the girl shared a concern with the billionaire. She explained that while she appreciated his help, she feared losing her independence. She had survived so long by relying on herself, and the thought of being beholden to someone made her uneasy. The billionaire listened carefully, understanding her fear and respecting it. He assured her that he had no intention of taking away her autonomy or forcing her into any situation. His goal was simply to provide opportunities and support. Allowing her to make choices for herself, he offered to arrange schooling and skill training. Explaining that knowledge and education could open doors she had never imagined. At first, she hesitated. Learning had always seemed distant, almost impossible, given her circumstances. But with encouragement from the twins and the billionaire, she began to see it as a chance to build a future that she controlled, one where her strength and determination could be used to create a better life. The billionaire also began thinking about his children. He wanted them to understand the lessons she had taught them more deeply. He arranged for activities that would allow them to experience empathy and responsibility, guided by her example. They spent time volunteering, helping those in need, and learning the value of small acts of kindness. These experiences were shaping their character, instilling values that money alone could never teach. As the days passed, the girl started to adapt to this new rhythm. She continued to care for herself, never losing the independence that had sustained her for so long. But she also accepted the help offered. She began attending lessons, learning, reading, writing, and other skills that would allow her to create opportunities for herself. Each day brought a new challenge, but she faced them with determination. Knowing that this chance could change her life forever, the billionaire observed her growth with a mixture of pride and humility. He saw her courage and independence, her humility and determination, and he felt both admiration and responsibility. He realized that true support meant providing resources, guidance, and opportunities, but never dictating choices or taking away a person's dignity. This understanding deepened his respect for her and reinforced the lessons. He wanted his children to learn from her example. One afternoon, the girl noticed a group of children playing nearby. They were struggling with small tasks, much like she had when she was younger. She walked over and began helping them, offering advice, encouragement, and a steady hand. Watching her interact with these children, the billionaire realized that her influence was spreading. Her courage and kindness were not limited to his family. They were inspiring others around her. She had become a beacon of hope, demonstrating that one person's bravery could impact many lives. The twins watched closely, learning from her example. They saw how she guided, encouraged, and protected without expecting anything in return. They saw the power of patience, empathy, and courage. These lessons became ingrained in their hearts, shaping the way they interacted with the world. They began to show care and understanding toward others, reflecting the influence of the girl who had saved them and now was teaching them about life in ways they could never forget. The billionaire realized that supporting her journey required more than just providing material help. It required patience, understanding, and respect for her choices. He made sure to consult her on every decision, whether it was about schooling, activities, or her future plans. This approach allowed her to retain control over her life while benefiting from his resources. It also reinforced the lesson that true generosity respects the autonomy and dignity of the person receiving help, as weeks turned into months. The girl's life began to transform gradually. Her legs strengthened, her knowledge grew, and her confidence expanded. She still remembered the struggles she had faced and the pain she had endured. But these experiences had become sources of strength rather than despair. She had learned to trust, to accept help without fear, and to dream of a future that was brighter and more secure than she had ever imagined. The billionaire continued to support her quietly, never imposing, always encouraging. He saw the profound effect she had on his family, on the twins, and even on himself. She had brought a sense of humanity, courage, and empathy into their lives that no wealth or privilege could provide. He realized that meeting her had been a turning point, not just for her life, but for his own understanding of what truly mattered in the world. The girl, for her part, began to plan her future with intention and care. She wanted to continue learning, to help others as she had been helped, and to create opportunities for herself that had once seemed impossible. The billionaire and the twins supported her every step of the way, respecting her autonomy while providing the tools she needed to succeed. Together, they were creating a bond built on trust, respect, and shared growth. One evening, as the sun set over the city, the girl looked out from the shelter, reflecting on how far she had come. She had survived countless hardships, faced danger, and protected others despite her own vulnerability. Now, she was learning to build a future with guidance and support, not because she needed charity, but because she had earned the chance through her courage, resilience, and heart. The billionaire watched her from a distance, feeling a deep sense of admiration and gratitude. He had witnessed firsthand how one person's bravery and kindness could inspire, protect, and transform lives. He understood that his wealth and influence were most valuable when used to support courage and integrity, not to impose control or demand obedience. Through these experiences, all of them had grown. The girl had gained confidence, skills, and hope. The twins had learned empathy, courage, and the importance of helping others. The billionaire had discovered humility, the true meaning of wealth, and the power of selfless actions. Together, they were forging a new understanding of life, one rooted in respect, compassion, and the recognition that every person, no matter their circumstances, had the potential to change the world. The girl's journey was far from complete, but the foundations had been laid. Her courage had created ripples that extended beyond her own life. Touching the billionaire, his children, and even the wider community, she had shown that true strength comes not from power or wealth, but from the heart. The willingness to act and the courage to face life's challenges with dignity and hope. and in doing so, she had become a source of inspiration, demonstrating that even those who seem the most vulnerable can leave a profound mark on the world around them. Months had passed since the day the girl had saved the billionaire's twins, yet the memory of that moment remained vivid for everyone involved. Her courage had set off a chain of events that transformed not only her life, but the lives of the twins and the billionaire himself. She had grown stronger, healthier, and more confident, while the children had learned lessons in empathy, bravery, and compassion that would stay with them forever. And the billionaire had learned the most important lesson of all, that true wealth was measured not in money, but in heart, kindness, and courage. The girl's life was now filled with opportunities that she had never imagined. She attended lessons regularly, learning reading, writing, and practical skills that could help her shape her future. At first, each lesson was a struggle. She had missed years of schooling and had to work harder than most children her age to catch up. But she persevered, motivated by a determination to make her life better and a desire to honor the trust and support that had been given to her. The billionaire ensured that she had everything she needed to. But he never imposed his will or made her feel obligated. He wanted her to retain her independence and pride, to learn and grow on her own terms. He saw her not as a charity case, but as a courageous young woman who had faced hardships with dignity and had saved lives when it mattered most. This respect made her feel valued and empowered, strengthening her resolve even further. The twins continued to be a constant presence in her life. They laughed together, shared stories, and spent hours learning from her. The bond between them grew stronger every day, built on mutual respect, trust, and admiration. The girl taught them not only about survival and courage, but also about empathy, kindness, and humility. She showed them that true heroism comes from helping others without expecting anything in return. And that strength is often measured by the heart rather than the body. The billionaire watched these interactions quietly, reflecting on how much his children were learning from someone he had initially underestimated because of her circumstances. He realized that his wealth and influence were meaningful only when used to uplift others and support those who demonstrated courage, integrity, and determination. The girl had shown him the power of selflessness, and he wanted to honor that by giving her the tools and resources she needed to build a better future. One day, the girl received a letter inviting her to participate in a citywide program for young people who showed exceptional courage and resilience. She hesitated at first, unsure if she could manage the attention and new challenges. But with encouragement from the billionaire and the twins, she accepted. The program gave her the opportunity to share her story, to inspire others, and to connect with people who could offer guidance and support for her. Education and future career. During her time in the program, the girl spoke about her experiences, her struggles, and the moment she had saved the twins, her story moved many people, inspiring them to act with courage and kindness in their own lives. She became a symbol of hope and resilience, showing that even those with the least in life can achieve great things through determination, empathy, and bravery. The attention was overwhelming at times, but she faced it with the same courage she had shown when protecting the twins. Refusing to let fear or doubt control her, the billionaire ensured that she had the support she needed to navigate this new chapter of her life. He provided mentors, resources, and guidance, always respecting her autonomy and choices. The twins were proud of her achievements, excited to see their friend recognized for her courage and strength. Together, they celebrated her accomplishments, reinforcing the bond they had built over months of learning, caring, and growing together. As the girl continued to thrive, she began to think about ways she could give back. She remembered the struggles of those she had grown up with on the streets, and wanted to help others who faced similar hardships. With the billionaire's guidance and support, she started small initiatives to provide education, food, and shelter for children in need. Her efforts were humble but impactful, and they reflected the lessons she had learned that kindness, courage, and determination can change lives, one person at a time. The billionaire watched her transformation with pride and awe. He had seen many people in his life, but none had inspired him and his family the way she had. Her journey had taught him to value heart over wealth, courage over comfort, and empathy over indifference. He knew that the impact of her actions would ripple through generations, shaping his children's character and influencing others in ways he could not fully measure. The twins, now deeply aware of the importance of compassion and bravery, began to apply these lessons in their own lives. They helped their peers, treated everyone with respect, and carried themselves with a sense of responsibility that reflected the influence of the girl who had saved them. They had learned that true courage is not about avoiding danger, but about standing up for what is right, even when it is difficult. And that empathy is a strength that can guide decisions and actions. The girl herself grew more confident each day, balancing her studies, mentorship initiatives, and time with the twins. She no longer saw herself as helpless or defined by her past struggles. Instead, she recognized her own strength, resilience, and capacity to make a difference. She had transformed her hardships into a source of motivation, using her experiences to inspire and uplift others. The city, bustling and busy as always, began to notice her story. Media outlets, local organizations, and individuals started to recognize her efforts and courage. Yet she remained humble, never seeking fame or praise, focusing only on helping others and building a future for herself and the children she wished to support. Her actions spoke louder than any words, earning respect, admiration, and gratitude from everyone who came in contact with her one evening. As the sun set and painted the sky with shades of gold, the girl reflected on her journey. From a child struggling to survive on the streets to a young woman making a real difference in the lives of others, her transformation was remarkable. She had faced fear, pain, and uncertainty, yet had emerged stronger, more compassionate, and determined to use her experiences to help others. She realized that the choices she had made, the courage she had shown, and the kindness she had extended had brought her to a place of purpose and fulfillment. The billionaire, observing from nearby, felt a deep sense of gratitude and humility. He had witnessed the power of one person's courage to change lives, and he understood that wealth and influence were most valuable when used to support, uplift, and empower. He had learned lessons he would never forget: the value of empathy, the strength of character, and the importance of seeing the humanity in everyone. Regardless of their circumstances, the twins, sitting close to the girl, looked at her with admiration and love. She had not only saved their lives, but had also taught them lessons that no classroom or tutor could provide. They understood the power of courage, kindness, and selflessness, and they carried those lessons in their hearts. Together, they celebrated the bond they had formed, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared experiences that would last a lifetime. The girl's journey was a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and heart. She had taken control of her life, embraced opportunities, and used her experiences to inspire and help others. The billionaire and his twins had learned from her example, their lives enriched by her presence, and together, they had created a story of hope, compassion, and transformation. In the end, the girl, who could barely walk when her journey began, had not only saved lives, but had changed them in ways no one could have anticipated. Her courage, determination, and kindness had left a lasting impact, proving that even those who seem the most vulnerable can achieve extraordinary things. And as she looked toward the future, she did so with hope, strength, and a heart full of compassion, ready to face whatever challenges came next, knowing that she had the power to shape her own destiny and the lives of those around her.